Evening, America. Good evening, planet Earth. I am Dana, the Angry Citizen, and I'm coming to you tonight. It is Thursday evening, and it's 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tonight, we are going to have a very important discussion regarding an issue that affects everyone in America, which is the IRS and taxes, and the lawfulness or lack thereof of the entire process. We're going to highlight a specific incident that's happened to a couple of constitutional Americans who have been persecuted, mercilessly persecuted by the government and the IRS. They're so-called agents. As you all know, I defy agents. Agents have no authority unless you can prove me wrong. Then I'm right. And agents don't have authority. They pretend they do. They impose themselves, inflict themselves forcibly on us. Their rules, laws, regulations, ordinances, statutes, etc. And my guest and I were recently just now discussing one of the core issues we're going to go over here, which is that the Supreme Court of the United States has determined and stated, and they're pretty corrupt, so even they agree with this, that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and that all laws that are repugnant to it are null and void. So if someone's quoting the law, they're saying, I'm enforcing this law, and we know that that law is repugnant to the Constitution. In the eyes of the judicial system, if they're doing their job correctly, it literally doesn't exist. So those people are then enforcing these unconstitutional laws, rules, mandates, etc. They are guilty of acting under color of law, which is a felony. And we, the people, need to unite behind that, because that's how we fight back and take our rights back and take our constitutional republic back. So my guest is someone I've interviewed before. We talked a little while back about he and his brothers were suing the federal government, and we had a great discussion about that. And I'm thrilled to bring him back on because he contacted me a few days ago about this concept, and specifically about a couple of constitutional Americans, and their names are Barbie and Ken. Let me make sure I pronounce that. Cromar, I'm pretty sure is how that's pronounced, Cromar. We're going to talk about them and what's happened to them. And hopefully we'll get enough people in this country to get behind these people that we will be able to turn this around, not only turn it around because they need to be immediately vindicated, but then we need to find every single last agent, enforcer, tyrant, anyone that has participated in the crimes that have been committed against them needs to be held accountable. And we can do this if we all unite and make it happen. So I'm going to bring my guest in. Thrilled to have him here. His name is Raland Brunson. Raland, good to see you, my friend, and thank you for contacting me about this.
Absolutely. A pleasure to be here. Now,
super excited about this.
I want to talk about President Trump's plan to get rid of the IRS.
Okay, let's dive right into it.
I don't know about you. Is that exciting or what?
Absolutely. And those of us that know about this subject, which, as you know, America's painfully ignorant on the whole subject. They really just don't have enough information to understand how this works. But the IRS is just a mutant, rogue terrorist organization that was created as a giant bloated parasite to suck the life out of we the people. And they are doing a marvelous job. They instill fear, threat, coercion. They're lawless. They're flagrantly lawless. And the case that you referred to me here that we're going to talk about with Ken Cromar clearly shows it. And I've done this several times with my other recent interviews where I've talked to people who have clearly established that the government's in the wrong and they're still in jail. So
yeah. And I have a brilliant, simple solution. It'll blow your mind. The simple solution that I have. Okay. Well, first of all, I got two solutions. One of them is I want to talk about the petition. President Trump wants to get rid of the IRS, but in the meanwhile, there are people in prison being incarcerated for tax evasion. They're sitting there in prison from this bogus law. This contradicts the Constitution. President Trump has the power to pardon everyone that's in prison for tax evasion. If you were to go to, kencromar.com, you'll have an opportunity to, with a click of a button, add your name to the petition. This petition is going to be hand-delivered. We know people, can't mention any names. It's going to be hand-delivered to President Trump, and he's going to consider, he'll be thinking about this. It's going to be a box of signatures about the power that he has to, in the meanwhile, pardon everyone who is in prison for tax evasion. We want you to go. We want you to do that. That's the number one thing.
I posted the links in the comments. So click the link, go read it. And folks, read through this. I know it's a little wordy, and yes, this requires some effort. Defending our rights requires effort. Everyone's got to get on board. Everyone's got to be knowledgeable and be able to articulate what's going on here so that we, the people, unite ourselves together. Because, as I've said many times, this man and his wife, who, by the way, are now in jail for so-called tax evasion, have been brutally assaulted by our terrorist government, and it needs to stop. And if it can happen to them, it can happen to us. Our rights are theirs, and theirs are ours. So we all get together, sign the petition. It's easy to do. And petitions, I want to say something important, and by all means, throw in with me here, Raland, that petitions have no lawful or legal weight per se. In other words, you can have a petition, okay, and you can bring it to a judge or a governor or anyone and show it to them. And they can, without penalty, simply say, I'm going to ignore your petition. There's no, they don't get thrown in jail or anything. They're not committing a crime. But so people say, well, what good are petitions? Petitions establish the weight of public opinion. They establish that all of us, yes, feel the same way. It exposes them, because then in order to oppose that, they have to conspicuously come out and say, even though you just presented me with this giant petition with 10 trillion names on it, I'm going to ignore it very conspicuously. See, it gives us a unity and a powerful voice, because then they know that repercussions are next. Lawful remedies and solutions and repercussions. Raland?
That's why when President Trump gets this, he's going to have to consider it. Whether he says yes or no, he will. And you're right. It doesn't have to be a lawfully way to do it. It's just President Trump has we the people, a box full of names saying, you've got to pardon these people that are being incarcerated for this bogus law. And he just might turn around and do this. I mean, my gosh. Yeah, we are pushing hard for this.
Yes, I agree that he might.
Now let's talk about the power of the court. And we were talking earlier that if you got this bogus evil law, you challenge it in court. Okay, that's where you go. You challenge the bogus law. You challenge the law the laws that contradict the Constitution in court, proving that it contradicts the Constitution, and then it becomes null and void. Okay. Now, here's the problem with this. Okay. And I've talked to a lot of people. The country feels burdened. They have to be highly educated to make a difference. You don't have to be highly educated to make a difference. And here's my solution. And this is brilliant. Do you know, and I'm going to ask you this, Dana, where in court is the most power? Is it the judge? Is it the prosecutors? Is it the defendant? Or is it the jury? Who has the most power in court? The jury, the judge, the prosecutor, or the defendant?
Good question. So one would think that the judge has the most power, but I believe the truth is that the jury has the most power, because jury has tools like jury nullification available to them. But the judge doesn't tell them that, and most people have no idea. They don't. When you're called to jury duty, you don't know what the law is, and they listen to the judge. The judge says, "Here's what you're going to do. I want you to do this and that, and blah blah blah, and you're going to base your decision on this." And they'll even sometimes testify in their sort of admonitions to the jury. They will sometimes throw in their own personal little spin or narrative by, subtle wording. So that's my answer.
That is true, accurate, and correct. A jury member has all the power in the court. Now, here's what's tricky, and this is where we the people need to be educated. They only need to know one thing: they don't have to follow the rules of the jury. When the judge says, "Okay, you've got to follow this, and you've got to follow my definition of the law," no, they can actually say, "No, the guy's innocent." That's all. The jury member can just simply say, "The defendant is innocent." I don't even have to explain why. He just is. And there's nothing the judge can do about it.
That's very consistent with what I have heard from other legal scholars and minds. And as my viewers all know, I've spent quite a bit of time researching history, the law, the Constitution. It was a million times deeper than I thought it was going to be when I got into it. I thought it would be a little, maybe a couple months, a year or so of kind of study, and I'd be pretty much where I needed to be. And immediately I found out all sorts of very disturbing things about the falsehoods of the law, the corruption of the judicial system, the corruption of the bar. The bar is an evil organization. They claim, like all such organizations, that they're benevolent. The reason they exist is to ensure integrity and professionalism and competence on the part of all these attorneys. Mm-hmm. And it's not about that at all. It's about power and control. They want to control it.
Man, I'm telling you something, man. You don't have to be, you don't have to be educated. This the lazy man's way to clean up the country is of a jury. Now, this is what happened. I'm sitting here in trial. Okay, this is Ken Cromar, who decided to sue the IRS. They gave him a tax bill, okay, and they were going to take his house, and he turned around and sued him. And that pissed them off so bad that they pulled up this law. It was 7201. And this, let me explain how this works. Okay, when Congress creates a law, it's called a code, a title. And there are 54 titles, 54 major laws that Congress has created. Inside of those laws are sections. Title 26 is all about the IRS. Title 26, created by Congress. And Title 26 has 9,834 little laws inside of it. That's the IRS. Okay? And one of them, Title 26, 7201 says, and this is how they got Ken Cromar. They said they actually got Congress to pass this stupid little code, which is any person who willfully attempts in any manner to evade or defeat a tax or a bill shall go to prison for 5 years. Now, if that's not vague or ambiguous, so Ken is like, I didn't do anything wrong. What law did I break? Well, you've filed a lawsuit against us. And that was an attempt to defeat the payment of your bill. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Okay. All right. Let's just say, okay, Dana, you're a jury member. Okay. And you want to do the right thing. You want to follow the rules. You're a good upcoming citizen.
Right.
Okay. And I were to say, Ken Cromar was videotaped, caught on his front lawn, praying to the Almighty God that he would intervene and defeat the payment of tax. And we've got that on tape. And we present it before the jury. Is that not an attempt to defeat the payment of a tax bill? Is it not?
It's a good illustration.
Remember, is it not?
Yes. Yeah, it is appropriately vague so that they can simply use it to concoct an excuse to exercise power over we the people, because they want to keep us subservient, and they make an example of people that resist and fight back.
Exactly. So you know what happened? You know what the jury did? They asked the judge, now, what do you mean by any attempt? Like what do you mean? We want to do the right thing. You know, they really were on Ken's side. They were on Ken Cromar's side. They deliberated for 3 days on that.
Wow.
And they asked the judge, and the judge says, this is what the judge says. This is what every judge says. I am the only one allowed to define the law.
That's what he said.
Follow my definition of the law. So what did they do? They said, okay, well, judge, define this law. He says, well, okay, that includes him filing a lawsuit against the IRS. Now go ahead and make your decision. So the jury is there deliberating. Gosh, the judge says that filing a lawsuit is an attempt to I guess he's guilty. So they gave him a guilty verdict. Okay. But what the judge also told them, and they didn't catch this, the jury didn't catch this. The judge says, you decide if he's guilty or innocent. You decide. I can't decide. The prosecution and defense can't decide. You decide. All the jury would have had to done is like, no, he's innocent. Simple as that. And do you realize what that would have done? That would have challenged the law right there. The jury would have says, no, this law is bogus. And guess what? It becomes case law, which means that every court in this country could use that in support of anyone who's accused of tax evasion. The jury has the power.
Well said. And we should, as a people, be educated enough to know that the basic facts. And I've talked, this is a constant topic of conversation among me and people like you, all my friends and allies that I have met nationwide, who are all trying to work together to restore this republic and to establish the law and establish our rights as absolutely sanctive. There's a word I'm looking for. They are sacred. They're given to us by God. It says right in the Constitution, they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and this is so fundamental, and yet it's being ignored. And so earlier, you and I were discussing the aspect of making sure that people know their rights, because as a friend of mine frequently says, if you don't know your rights, you have no rights. And this is valid. And we as a nation, we know this is true, America. Absolutely. If you think I'm wrong on this, yeah, prove me wrong, because I know I'm right. We have been deliberately denied this knowledge. They've removed it from our schools, the curriculum in our schools. They have obscured it and glossed it. They will misquote the Constitution, the sources that will paraphrase things in the Constitution. Instead of repeating the exact text of it, they'll take a slide or interpretation and start telling, well, the Constitution says blah, blah, blah. And no, we need to know that. And it does not require a legal degree. They want you to believe that because they don't want you to look at it. And as soon as I began looking into it, I realized that most of it is pretty basic and easily digestible. If you just take the time to read it a little bit, try to understand it. Mm-hmm. So, and I told you this, I think last time we spoke, Raland, I know it's been a while. It's been a year or more since we did our first interview. And I was trying to get together with enough people to coordinate an effort to teach this in a manner that's very digestible and understandable. I don't want to use the word idiot's guide to the law, but more like I like to call it lawful jujitsu. So that to give each person the ability to defend themselves using correct words and phrases, because words have tremendous power. And if you're dealing with agents and enforcers and government, using the right words clearly tells them that you know what you're doing and that you're not going to be an easy victim. See, and when cases like what's going on with Ken and Barbara come out, they do everything they can to shut that down, because that's the incentive that we all need. That's the hope. The ray of hope comes through when a guy like that stands up and says, no, I'm not going to go along with your shenanigans. I'm not going to submit to your authority because you don't have it. I'm not going to admit I did anything wrong because I didn't. I've committed no crime. Basic stuff. You know?
Yeah, I was the lead on the legal part of this with Ken Cromar, and so I was challenging the prosecution. The government prosecutors, the IRS top dogs, came from Washington D.C. down here to Utah to challenge him in the federal court, and I challenged them. And I was going through the books, and they had violated quite a few laws, and one of them was the indictment itself. The indictment contradicted itself. They actually broke the rules of the indictment, and it's very clear in the law that if the indictment does not, if it has not have integrity, if it doesn't follow the laws, which are strict of the indictment, then the indictment is null and void. I made my document so clear because I want to be. I consider myself a master on simplicity. I make sure that the 10-year-old kid can understand my pleadings and the documents when I create them. And I showed, I wasn't even wordy at all. I went right to the point how they were violating, where they violating, and that it was null and void. And I did a motion to dismiss. It was in court. The judge completely ignored it.
This is a very common theme. In America, I need to tell you all something that I have learned, which is very, very important, which is that we have tools available to us that we don't know anything about. They're not telling us about all the tools we have available. You all have heard the word impeachment, but a lot of people really don't understand what that means. Most people think an impeachment is when you charge someone who's in a position of power, one of our elected servants, with some sort of crime, and that it works kind of like getting arrested, but it really doesn't. It is in fact an accusation of a crime, but it's also a process to remove people from office, like judges. And judges should be impeached. And if we were using that tool, believe me, we would see them fall into line in a hurry. We impeach one or two of them and watch the other one suddenly realize that, yeah, the Constitution actually does mean what it says. And I can't say things in court on record that are completely ridiculous and contradictory, because then I will pay the price for that. The people will say, well, you're not doing your job, which you're not. If you're supposed to uphold and defend the Constitution and people come into your court, prove that they're innocent, and you then say, I don't care, I'm going to interpret the law to mean what I want, and you're guilty and going to jail, then they get impeacched.
That's right. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but President Trump mentioned that he'd like to remove some of the Congress from office. And I mean, there's a couple of ways of doing that. You can go to this U.S. Supreme Court, like my brothers and I have done, which is, by the way, they can pull that at any time and do a hearing on it, which means that this is a card that President Trump can pull anytime he wants. He can actually do a special presidential petition to any one of the justices, asking them to hear this case and use that to clean up Congress. But there's another way of doing it. I don't know if you've heard this phrase, but it's called the bill of expulsion. I've never heard of that. Have you ever heard of the bill of expulsion?
No.
I've never heard of it, but I happened to do some research. The bill of expulsion means that, including President Trump, any member of the Senate can create a bill of expulsion, which is basically an article specifically to remove a member of Congress from office. And all they need is 2/3 votes from the Senate, and that person is gone. Just that's simple.
I'm reading
I'm wondering, do they not know about this? Does President Trump knows about this? How come he's not doing it? They can do a bill. I don't think Congress even knows they can do this.
I doubt it. One of the things I've found that's most disturbing is that a preponderance of people involved in government are, the phrase that was used by one of the legal scholars I was researching was constitutionally illiterate. And they are. They, like, for the best example I can think of is the current rage about birthright citizenship, which for some strange reason, people really believe that means you can come here pregnant, have a baby, and your baby, because it was born on U.S. soil, it is now a U.S. citizen. And that is not what it says. It's critical.
I didn't know that.
It does not mean that you can step across the line, have the baby, and now the baby's a U.S. citizen. So,
I mean, that's not true. I thought that was true. That's not true.
No, well, no, that the Supreme Court ruled that that's what it meant a while back.
Oh,
even though it doesn't. You see, that's literally it says, and I'll look up the exact wording of it, phrasing it, but it was an either owing no allegiance to or owing no jurisdiction to other powers or something to that effect. In essence, it means that if you come here from somewhere else, you're a citizen of that nation. If you come here from China, you're a Chinese citizen. And when you have a baby, your baby is not a U.S. citizen if you're a Chinese citizen and you come here and you have the baby. And I'm not hateful. I don't hate, people who come here and immigrants. And I don't want people coming here illegally, ignoring the law and coming here illegally. And birthright citizenship does not mean you can come here pregnant, have a baby. And then there's a great legal scholar. You can look this up. Her name is Chris Ann Hall. And she did a great piece about this where she talked about it, and it's absolutely not what they say it is. And again, I don't hate immigrants. I have nothing against them. God bless the people that want to come here. I appreciate them. And I honestly think if you're living here and you're not doing your due diligence as an American, that you should your spot here should be up for grabs. Someone should be able to come here from a foreign country. If you're not willing to get out and vote and call the people that serve us in Congress and tell them what your wishes are and throw in aid when people like Ken and Barbara are falsely incarcerated, you just want to live here and enjoy the benefits without any of the duties and obligations. I don't think you should have a place here. That's my feeling. Look at all the veterans that have paid with blood for our inattention, for us allowing our Congress to send our sons and daughters off to be murdered and to murder other people because it's supposedly patriotic or in the best interest of the country when it's not. And I'm all about, if we got to fight, you got to fight. That's it. That's the story of my life. When it's time to throw down, you got to throw down. Okay. But you don't do it if you don't have to. It's idiotic. And in this case, it's costing human lives. We, the people, owe it to everyone, and especially the military service people, to be diligent and to monitor our government and to hold them accountable for their actions. And it involves calling them and writing them letters. And my letters are very public. I've written a few that are right on my Facebook page, and you can read them for yourself. And I stand behind every word.
Have you been threatened yet?
No. And I haven't had a visit from the FBI, which honestly is kind of disappointing because virtually everyone I know that's doing this work has been visited by the FBI at some point. I must be on their radar. I don't know why they don't take me seriously. It's a little offensive, honestly.
Well, maybe you should believe in God. I don't know. Do you pray daily for protection?
I do. Well, I don't pray daily, but yes, I do believe in God. Absolutely. I'm a son of God, living, breathing son of God. And yeah,
I pray. I want to ask you something about that. Okay.
Sorry?
I want to ask you something about that. Because I believe in God, and I believe that that before God destroys a country or a nation, like in the Old Testament, he needs at least a few people that are God-fearing, and what's another decent. That's a better way to put it. At least a handful of people that are decent, right?
Sure.
And so when I'm looking at this President Trump situation and why he was spared from getting shot and all that, and why he's president, is because it's my conviction, my personal conviction, is because the majority of America are decent when it comes to wanting their liberty and their freedom. And because of that, God has to appeal to that. He has to. It's the majority. So he picked President Trump and is going to preserve President Trump so the American people, we the people, can see what we've been praying for in our hearts, even if it's not verbally, a free country. What do you think of that? Do you think there's something to that?
I mean, there's a lot of concepts in there. So specifically regarding President Trump, I have said many times that I'm not a Trump supporter, and it's hard for me to explain my position on this issue because President Trump has done things and said things with it I completely agree with and wholly support and endorse and enthusiastically endorse. And by God, he has been mostly true to his word in terms of, like, the first thing he did was send troops to the border to secure the border, which to me seemed like an easy home run. We were living under this fantasy where for some reason the Biden administration maintaining this couldn't be done. It was impossible. And the governors of Arizona and Texas overrun with, illegal aliens. And, President Trump said, if I were elected, I would send troops down there and secure that border. And it needs to be secured. It's important. And we, the people, agree. If you want to come here, you should be forced to come here legally. You shouldn't be able to just run across the border and then, become a citizen or pretend to be a citizen or whatever the case may be. It's just not right. There's a process. If you want to be here, go through the process. And if the process is, flawed, then fix the process. Don't ignore it. So President Trump has, from my viewpoint, done things I agree with, and I support him every time. I've decried him before, and I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to, have this be the topic of our discussion entirely, but I call him out when I disagree with him. And that's what we need to do as a nation. As for God putting him there, sparing him from the bullet, I don't know. That whole thing could have been staged. I don't know. I can't believe it unless I can verify it for myself. The truth is the sword of God. So I believe what I know to be true. And at the end of every day, I ask myself this question: does it affect me personally? If this issue is this or that? I'll give you the best example is the entire flat Earth debate, which I find very amusing. Okay. And at the end of the day, does it matter to me if the Earth is flat or round? No, because I still have to get up and go to work. I still have to pick up my son. I still have to make dinner. And you know what I'm saying? It's not worth my time to deep investigate this thing that has zero impact on my life.
Let me add to that.
President, whether you like him or not, he's the president, and as long as he does the right thing, I have his back 100%. And I think that's where we all need to land as Americans, because if it's good for us, then we should do it.
All right, let me talk to you about the IRS for a second, okay?
Please do.
Because I want to offer a lot of comfort to people when it comes to the IRS. I've dealt with the IRS all my life. My dad went to jail because of the IRS. Ken Cromar is in prison because of the IRS, and dealing with the IRS and working with the IRS. This is what happens. Okay, this is from experience and what I've seen. The process of the IRS. Okay, there are a lot of people who just will not file their income taxes. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. I'm not going to even go there. I'm just going to simply say this is what will happen or what could happen. Right now, the IRS has really, they brag about their customer service, which means that if you don't pay their taxes, most people don't get caught. They do not get caught. And the ones who do get caught is because somebody either calls them up saying, I know a neighbor who hasn't been paying their taxes. And what happens is they go through a simple little, very polite audit. Bring in your records, whatever you have. Can we give you a soda? They sit down in the office and they give you a tax bill. Nobody goes to jail. This is for a person who's terrified. I haven't paid taxes. And so, they're like, I haven't paid taxes in years and years and years. Wow, what's going to happen to me? Look, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get a tax bill. The next thing is going to happen, they're going to try to collect money from you. They're not going to threaten you to go to jail. They haven't ever. Okay? We're going to take whatever property you have. We're going to take your house. But before they take your house, and this is what they did with Ken Cromar, they were very polite about it. They have a lady, an IRS agent. She looks like some sweet grandmother. You never guess that she was an IRS agent. She's just doing her job, knocks on the door, and she says, we don't want to take your house, which is true. The IRS does not want to take your house. They want money. They want to do a money plan. Now, there was a time back in the 70s when the IRS agents' lives were threatened. My dad knew some of them. I mean, the IRS agents were getting shot So the IRS they changed their customer service to make it be very, very friendly, non-threatening. They stopped carrying guns around back then. What the next thing they do is they say, we want to work out, can we do a payment plan? What the heck? You don't want to take my house? No, we'll work out a payment plan with you. Okay, that's very, very nice. So they take a look at your finances. And a lot of times, and this is what's really crazy, you can actually negotiate at 10 cents on the dollar for what you owe them, or maybe even a penny on the dollar. I did a negotiation because it was a time I didn't pay for years and years and years, but I needed a file because I needed to get my credit up there. And so they knew I wouldn't pay. So they came after me and they worked out a payment plan that I couldn't make the payment. I worked with them and finally they just got rid of the whole debt altogether. Very nice people if you treat them with respect. This will happen to you. And this is what happened to Ken. We don't want to take your house. We'll work out pennies on the dollar. Ken says, stick it in your ear. I want to challenge you because you're all anti-Constitution, which is great. So that's why he filed a lawsuit against them. He didn't want to admit that they were okay. Me, on the other hand, I don't got that kind of guts to challenge the IRS in court. No. I'm just like, whatever, penny on the dollar. Okay, here, I'll sign my name on it. And then if you can't even do that, they'll do an offer in compromise. And a lot of times they'll just eliminate the debt as long as you don't piss them off. Okay, as long as you don't tell them to piss them off. So a lot of people are really terrified of this thing called the IRS, and it's all the terror, and the people who really are in there have either lied on their IRS forms and challenged them at the same time. Very, very few people, and a lot of times the IRS is weaponized as a political strategy. Oh, wow! I mean, like, what's his name? Obama did this. He had the IRS audit people, his opponents, audit and scrutinize them and make up bills. It was terrible how the IRS could be weaponized. But in the meanwhile, if you really do want to take on the IRS, if you want to challenge them in court, there's one very powerful, proper, organized, clear way to do that, and it's called a petition for review. It's a judicial review. You actually file in court a judicial review on a law that contradicts a higher law. I don't know of anyone who's ever done that. I really don't. And you were talking earlier, you've challenged him in court. That's how you get rid of the laws, is in court. But people don't understand that. Just like you said, Dana, we got to be educated about this. But challenge the law. You have to show how it contradicts the Constitution. And if it does, you can then appeal it, which is really great. You do this in your local court. You petition for review, which people don't know how to do. And then you can keep appealing that up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And then if it affects this whole nation, the U.S. Supreme Court, they have gotten rid of laws. They have gotten rid of a lot of laws that violated the Constitution based upon that procedure.
And these processes, these legal, legislative, judicial processes and so forth are represented to we the people by that industry as being a mystic jungle of tangled rules and regulations and terms, and you don't understand this. And so they funnel us into the bar. Okay, so this is typically how things go for we the people. Someone's arrested, accused of a crime, they have situations, anything that's being done to them that they would lawfully want to go and get a lawful remedy in our court system. And they're immediately presented with an entire realm about which they know nothing. They don't know the rules, they don't know the ins, the outs, the procedures, etc. Bar attorney is the recommendation. Thousands of dollars for at least any representation by the bar, an attorney of the bar, and you're immediately going to be forking over, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. I did an interview with a gentleman who used to live here in Maine. His name is Rick Savage. He's pretty famous because he bucked the system during the pandemic, kept his restaurant open, and the governor declared war on him and started sending agents, tax agents, liquor agents to harass him daily. He had to literally get a restraining order from the sheriff of his county, who, God help, bless him for doing it, gave him the restraining order to get these people to leave him alone. And I did this interview with Rick about this very subject. And Rick is a mildly successful to successful businessman who had some resources, and he did hire a lawyer, and he did go to court, and it cost him, I don't remember what he probably told me, like 20 grand or something like that, at least, in all these legal fees. And the judge ruled against him. And the wording of this was so ridiculous. It was literally like opposite land. It was like, ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears. There's nothing wrong. You don't need any relief. You've demonstrated no need for any relief. The governor of Maine told him to close his business and ordered him to do this, and wherein he was deprived of his liberty and his rights, and all his employees were out of work. And he continued paying people, and he gave away food, like he gave away all the food he had in his restaurant to the various homeless organizations and such. But still, he was deprived. He got no relief in court. This is very, very common. You hire the bar attorney, you pay them thousands of dollars, you go to war, you lose, and shut up and get on with your life. But we, the people, can be successful. And in fact, the more I've done this, Raland, the more I've realized that the people that are doing well and in court are typically people who go and do their own research and represent themselves, which we are told is a horrible mistake. Anyone who represents themselves has a fool for a client, right? Well, that's a bar attorney statement. They're telling you don't do this because it deprives us of our realm of control and of the money that we're going to soak out of you. And they will, and they don't care where you get it, how you get it. You sell your house, you give away your kid's college fund. They don't care, man. It's 10 grand. You want to talk to me? You want me to show up in court and try to help you? It's 10 grand. And it's highly unlikely that I'll even be successful. I'll probably fail, and you'll still go to jail because I'm a member of this club. And I don't dare to do the things that are effective in court. To be effective in court, you have to buck the system and speak the truth. When they're exercising tyranny, you've got to say, you have no lawful authority to do this. Like you were talking about in with what Ken did. Here it is. This is the truth, right? And they can't deny it, so they're left with tyranny. That's what we're now going to ignore, the fact that you're right and that you've proven you're right, and we're going to just throw you in jail anyway. And that's where we are right now. So along the course of lawful remedies, and I put the link in here if you folks who are watching, or if you see this, check the link. It's www.kencromar.com, and it has Raland wrote a very nice consensus and a very nice explanation of what happened. I encourage you all to read through it. Sign the petition. A petition, again, does not have any lawful weight. That means you can't use it to force someone to be held accountable. It doesn't have the ability to make them stop what they're doing. They can just ignore you. But it establishes the weight of public opinion, which is critical. There are 300 million people in America, okay, legal citizens of the United States, we the people. And there are a handful, a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of a fraction of people are involved in this corruption. See, we have all the power. We just need to use it. So sign the petition, check the webpage, and stay in touch with all of the updates as we get going along. I'm sure Raland's going to be posting the various events on the website. You can track this and write letters. And I'm going to write, I've written quite a few letters. As I said, I'm going to write a letter to this gentleman. The link provides a physical address, and I want you all to do that. All of you watching, you write a letter to this man. You tell him you saw this, you're aware of what's going on, and you signed a petition, and you support him as a constitutional American. Send him a physical letter. Let's let him get thousands of letters from us, letting him know we see you, we hear you, we're not going to abandon you. And at the end of the day, if we have our way, which we can, we will hold accountable all the people that did this to you. They will go to jail because they're all guilty of deprivation of rights under color of law. Am I right?
That's right. That's right. This will get in the hands of President Trump. He sees a lot of signatures, and he does have the power to pardon everyone currently being incarcerated for tax evasion. You may have a relative that's being incarcerated right now, or someone that you know. President Trump has the power to release him. We will get this into his hands, and we need your signature to make it more powerful for him. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So please, folks, sign the petition, write the letter. I know it's effort. I get it. But even if it's just a quick, fire off a very quick letter. Hey, I saw this and I'm supporting you. God bless you. we're doing our best to help you out. Put it in an envelope, send it to him, and sign the petition and forward this to as many people as you can, and ask them to please participate. Man, I would love to see. I frequently, when I do this, I ask for, very modest responses from people. I'm not that guy who's constantly, you and I talked about this earlier, pounding the, please listen to me and do as I say. I really rarely do. I hold it for important things. And, I would love to see 10% of the country participating. That would be 30 million people. 10%. That's what I want to see. 30 million people sign this petition. 3,000 people send this guy a letter.
Oh yeah.
Right? We support you as a constitutional American. I'll be honest with you folks. I don't know this guy. Never met him. Never met his wife. They seem like decent people from the little I know about them, but they may be horrible people. But that doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me whether they're right wing or left wing. I don't care what their religion is. I don't care what color their skin is. I care only that they are constitutional Americans being just rigorously persecuted by our government, because these agents, and I pretty much despise mostly all agents. If you're an agent, whatever agent you are, of whatever agency you are, not fond of you. I'm sick to death of government intrusion in my life. There's 1,000% too much government intrusion constantly telling me what I'm allowed to do, how to do it, when to do it. It's insane. And so I do not accept that reality needs to exist. If we all get on the same page and we all organize and we all band together and put aside our differences and sit on this issue, whether you love me or hate me, whether you think Raland Brunson is a horrible scumbag, grifting con man, I don't care. The petition is still valid and it still has weight. And the more weight we give it, the better our chances of a result. And if we get a visible result, America, we need a win. We need a big win that everyone sees conspicuously in front of us. And that pushes the momentum the other way. We start holding them all accountable for all their crimes, all of the abductions of children from Child Protective Services, the child trafficking that's been going on, all the fraud, waste, corruption, the theft of our money, sending our money to foreign nations, the absolute abolition of the IRS. The IRS is a terrorist organization, and they exist solely to just extract money from we the people, and they will not hesitate to use unlawful tactics, threats, coercion, lies, manipulations, etc. That it needs to be abolished. I'm wholly on board with that one. We can figure out a much, much more effective way. And in fact, Raland, you touched on this as well in the petition itself, or on the press release page, I think it was. All 9 Supreme Court justices have agreed that the only federal income tax allowed is an indirect, unapportioned income tax. This is not what the IRS has been enforcing. They fraudulently claim the 16th Amendment allows for a direct, non-apportioned income tax. When applied constitutionally, the word apportioned means that the federal government is authorized to require from each state a portion of the federal budget each year based on the state's population according to the last census. But then each state's government is to collect the money from its own population. For example, if California had 10% of the nation's population, their portion of a $1 trillion federal budget would equal $100 billion. Can you see how wise our founding fathers were? This incentivizes states to fight for the lowest possible federal budget. Can you see how this would naturally eliminate the fraud, waste, and abuse that DOJ has been exposing in the last few days? Well said. Couldn't agree with you more, my friend. Perfectly said.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can see that here, folks. I'm going to post the link to the press release itself. It's on the webpage. They're both there, but I'm going to, better safe than sorry. Paste. I can figure this out. I'm a computer expert. Here we go. See? A friend of mine gave me this mug. There you go. I'm a computer genius. So this has been a great discussion, and I mean we could go on like all night long, but getting kind of back to the theme of the folks that have been imprisoned and the petition. What's your next step going to be?
Well, once I get all the names, and I get enough names, then I'm going to get this into the hands of President Trump, and then just pray that he does something about it. And it's that simple.
Good. Well, I definitely am an enthusiastic supporter, as you know, and would love to see this, have an effect, even if it's just bringing enough attention to it to change the way things are done. Like, I would like to see these people freed because they haven't harmed anyone. There's no harm. They've committed no crime. In my opinion, that is a factual statement. They have not committed a crime, so they're in jail for no valid reason whatsoever. And we've seen it destroy lives and families. These tax laws and the tax codes are so absurdly complicated, no one can follow them. I've done my own taxes many times, and I in fact did my own taxes one year when it was mildly complicated. I was married. We did married filing separate returns, and that worked out to be to my advantage in that time. But it was very, very complicated, and it took me a couple of days to comb through everything very carefully and make sure I was doing it right, because the rules are so complicated, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Appreciate you, man.
So yeah, any parting words for the viewers?
And one last thing, and that is, I made this simple. The petition, just a click of a button. That's all you got to do. You read the petition, click the button, type in your name and the city and the state, and click enter, and you are on that list. Yep. That's it.
Yeah, a lot of people think about electronic petitions, they're just like too simple. It's deceptively simple. Like it shouldn't be that simple. It can't be effective. It's that simple, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you're a real person and you're willing to put down your name and the city, which I am, I value my privacy. I don't want to be in the public eye. I'm not here because I'm seeking fame and glory.
Yeah, no one else is going to see that about President Trump. Well,
there you go. So I'm just saying to the audience, do it. Just take the step, do it. It's not the end of the world, and it will have an effect. And so I would love to see 1 million people, 3 million, 30 million would be the goal. So
yeah.
Raland, thanks, my friend, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you in the future and see where this is going. And man, God willing, if it happens and it draws the attention of President Trump, I'll be applauding you.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. God bless you, Dina. Appreciate it.
Thank you. God has blessed me, my friend. Let me tell you, I'm blessed in so many ways. And that brings me to the final thing I want to say, what I want to leave off with you all, folks. So I've had a couple people comment on some of my posts about money, like, do I have like a GoFundMe or anything like that? I'm not asking anyone for money. I've said this many times, and I find it ironic that people keep talking to me about, they're getting me donations or whatever. If there's a billionaire out there who wants to throw me some money, that's fine. That's great. Okay. But please don't. I have food. I have a roof over my head. I don't need your money. What I need is your attention and your time. Just a few minutes. Sign the petition, write a letter. I'm going to post a link to the letter I'm going to write in the comments. So check back here to see that. If you like my words, you can print my letter and send it. Just put your name at the bottom. I agree with this guy. Sign it. If you don't like my words, and use your own. And you know what? If you disagree, you think it's a terrible idea, you go ahead and write President Trump. Tell him this is a terrible idea. These people committed crimes. They should rot in jail. And he will look at that. But I guarantee you, there's a lot more of us that favor this motion than that don't. I do believe, America, that we are united, firmly united on the same page in most issues, and we have to stop bickering and stop talking about our differences and instead focus on all the things that we all agree on, that we want to see happen, and we will see some progress on those issues. I truly believe that. So lastly, I just want to say I am sponsored by the Flame USA. I urge you all to go to theflameusa.com and subscribe. The Flame is a newspaper. It is printed by a very dedicated group of patriots that want to be able to speak the truth and not be censored, because censorship is the tool of the devil. Whenever you speak unpleasant truths, the devil tries to silence you. That's his nature. And so this is an actual physical newspaper. You can subscribe to it. It's very inexpensive. You can get an electronic copy for like $3 a month or $2 a month or something like that. I strongly urge you all to do that. theflameusa.com. And lastly, a huge shout out to my friend and brother, Ohio Brett, who's now Aloha Brett, or maybe it's Aloha Ohio Brett. I don't know. Love you, brother. Let's talk soon. Thank you to my guest, Raland Brunson, for coming. And thank you all to my viewers for watching. Please share this, and please share that petition, folks. Let's get that thing pumped up as big as we can get it. Send it to President Trump. And have a win for we the people. So God bless you all. Have a great night. And I am the Angry Citizen. I will talk to you all again soon.